Yes, people. Welcome back to the Armoury TV. I'm GTalks Arsenal, your host for today's show. And we're simply going to go through what was a very early or very late or very convenient time for different Gooners, depending on where you are in the world, which was last night's, this morning's or convenient times game of Arsenal versus Barcelona, which ended 5-3. Obviously, before we go into it, I'm going to introduce my guest, the one, the only, Akpos. How you doing, bro?
Well, I'm doing great, G. Thanks for having me on the show today.
No problem. Always a pleasure. So we're going to run the intro, and then we're going to get started. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who's tuning in. Thank you so much for giving us your time. What is 1:30 p.m. in the UK. So yeah, like I said just before we ran the intro, myself and Akpos are here to basically chop up what was an entertaining game for a number of reasons against Barcelona in a 5-3 win for the Gooners. Now, I mean, before we get onto it, I remember like back in the day when, you know, being an Arsenal fan for as long as I've been and being the age that I am, pre-season never really had a lot of relevance. I mean, there were times when I was an Arsenal fan, and I think probably due to the fact that we followed sports on like teletext and, you know, newspapers and stuff like that, a lot of the time we didn't even know who we were playing in pre-season. There were times when a lot of the games were behind closed doors. There weren't even crowds. Whereas now it's like, it's literally completely transformed. It's like pre-season has become this massive event, you know, obviously commercially, you know, go into, you know, the States or other parts of the world. Even the opposition, I mean, has changed. There were times when you used to play like teams in the Championship or lower league, whereas now you're seeing some real kind of heavyweight, you know, battles between Prem on Prem, and obviously European games. So what do you make of as a Gooner? What do you make of like the hype and the recent kind of real relevance of preseason games in comparison to what it used to be like?
I think it all tells us the way things have changed in the world, especially with the amount of information that is more accessible now to the fan base. Years past, we had no, like you rightly said, some of these games were played behind closed doors. Some of these games were not even televised. So There was not that much interest in seeing these preseason games. But now almost every preseason games are available for fans to watch through one medium or the other. So there is a lot of information accessible to the fans. Fans now have access to a lot of all of these metrics and all. So players also want to give their all during this preseason game. Like you rightly said, when we played Manchester United, you could see some of the tackles flying in that game. It felt like it was a Premier League encounter or a Champions League game. So I think that tells us the big shift of the way things were in the last couple of years in the football sector and what it is right now, where teams are giving their all. You're seeing players are making sure that these 50-50 tackles, they are going in for these tackles. And also the players, they know the fans are watching. And they know they need to put in a good performance also for the manager, because you want to be on a right level before the season starts. You want to be knocking on the manager's door, because in a team like Arsenal, let's use Arsenal for example, there are going into this new season, there are going to be a lot of competition for places. So every player, with every opportunity they get, they are knocking on the manager's door. Okay, I need to be starting ahead of my colleague who also plays in the same position like me. So I think things have changed. These friendly games are no more as it used to be. There are a lot of things that are in stake in the friendly games now. So I think for we as fans, we want to see more football. We want to see our players putting in the fight every time they don the JC, every time they have that on the front of their chest. So for us, I think it's a good one. I think the fans love it that we are able to see this. that were able to, get a glimpse of the level of fitness these players are to start. So I think for us as fans, we love it. And also, I still feel the players also love it going in, like you said, going into the US, going into Asia, and potentially we hope that more teams will be able to come also to Africa, where we could potentially get first-hand view of these players who play at the Premier League. Because let's say a league like the Premier League, for example, has got a huge following in Africa. Nigeria, for example, where I'm from, where I've lived most of my life, I know that when these teams would potentially, if they come visit, let's say Arsenal comes visit tomorrow to Nigeria, bro, it's going to be a carnival. It's going to be massive. So the fans are looking forward to these clubs also going to different continents. And there's this excitement, there is this connection, making you feel more connected also to the football club and also to the players.
Definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. And I think, talking about how it's obviously heightened now, it's hyped, the media coverage, etc. And I think the point you made, which was so brilliantly made, was that, the fans have responded, to how big a scale it is now. The fans have responded. And I agree, the players have responded, because pre-season friendlies used to be played at a real pedestrian pace. They were just kind of like a bit of a kickabout, just people to get fitness. But I mean, you just, like you said, you just had to look at the United game. We'll get on to obviously last night's game. I mean, it was a feisty affair. It did not have the feel of what we would generally, think back to what pre-season was like. But you know what? We've got some comments coming in. Already put some of them on the screen. Luke here is saying, I'm not a fan of playing Premier League teams myself in pre-season, as inevitably it becomes more physical and intense and therefore greater risk of injuries. I think it's a fair point. Although, like I said, last night's game was a bit feisty, which we'll get into later on in the stream. Tony here saying, if it wasn't for the Cronkies, we wouldn't be playing in America. They're businessmen and they're not stupid. Again, which I kind of touched upon at the beginning of the show. There is a commercial side to it, of course. We know, football is and I think with regards to that, it kind of is what it is. But we'll get on to, obviously, the game itself, Arsenal versus Barcelona. And I'll bring up the first 11. I'm not going to go too much into the substitutions that were made, but we probably might touch on some of the performances of those players. But obviously, the lineup came. And I'll be honest, I stayed up until 2:30 because I was very interested to see what the lineup was. And I thought, if I make it to 2:30, I'll make it to 3:30. Once I heard that the game was delayed, I've got to be honest, man. My wife's at work today. I'm looking after my little one. My son's watching at the moment, so I can do the stream. And I just thought, I can't be looking after the little one on about 2-3 hours sleep. So I gave up. But I've since woken up. I've watched the game. I know you've watched the game, caught the highlights. So we're there or thereabouts in terms of what happened. But when you saw the lineup, Akpos, or just looking at the lineup now, happy with it, given it was our fourth or third game of pre-season. So yeah, any kind of thoughts on the lineup, players who played, players who were missing? Just give me your thoughts, what you thought of the first 11.
I think the starting 11 against Barcelona in that friendly game gives us a picture of what to expect and going into the first game of the season. For me, I think we're going to see something similar, maybe one or two changes with this starting 11. So I think Mikel Arteta is trying to keep up a starting 11 up to pace before the season starts. And if we could, one thing that's noticeable in this with this starting 11 is like most of the people who started this game had a good number of minutes to keep them, up to match level fitness by the first day of the season. So I think what we are going to see come the first day of the season is going to be very similar to the starting 11 against Barcelona.
I hear you. And when I went on the stream, I did a stream, I can't remember, with James earlier on in the week. And I kind of touched upon the fact that I wanted to see us go strong in the remaining games, particularly Barcelona, Monaco, leading up to, obviously, for me, what is a huge game against Man City in the Charity Shield. I want to win that game. I want to pick up the first piece of silverware, albeit, it's not the most significant, but it's a win against, your potential title challengers. It could have a psychological impact. And like I say, it's another piece of silverware in the cabinet. So I was pleased that we went strong. I am concerned that we haven't seen Zinchenko. if I'm honest, I am concerned that he's not featured in any of the games so far, because obviously we saw last season just how integral he is to the way we play. I think this season we're going to be better equipped to deal with his absence. Notably, we've got players now that can play that role, that kind of inverted left back or right back role, more than we did last season. And it was a shame for me that Balogun and Rice were not able to take part due to injury. At the time, I don't think the commentators mentioned it, but I know Arteta has since come out and said that both of them were struggling with injury, so they weren't, kind of part of the team. So that was a little bit disappointing, but hopefully we get to see, both of them maybe against Monaco later on. So we're going to just go to the comments quickly. A couple more come through before we move on. Tony here says we learned from the United game. Yeah, we were a little bit more pedestrian pace, a little bit less competitive in that match. And I think the players definitely got the kick up the backside after that game. And you could see the energy that they brought to the Barca game was very different to that of the Manchester United game. The good thing is when we put substitutes on, we didn't drop. Very, very good point. I did notice that. If anything, they came on and somewhat elevated their performances as well. Games are always delayed across the pond. They never start on time. It's a bugbear of mine as a fan from North American sports. I hear you, bro. Just think we've got Rice and Zingy to add to that team. I know it's crazy when you think about the depth that we are now creating. I don't think we're there yet, but we're definitely developing a phenomenal squad. Steve here, big up Steve. Would have liked to have seen Tierney start. I was buzzing to watch the match. Lasted until 11:30 p.m. No problem, Steve. You weren't the only one. But yeah, so we're not going to go through the ins and outs of the goals, etc., etc. But obviously Barcelona took the lead. It was Lewandowski. Who else? Top goal scorer of La Liga last season. What I want your opinion on is it was a goal that was due to an error. So Odegaard lost possession in the middle of the park. And this is not us sitting here with an opportunity to bash Odegaard because, players make mistakes. And if you're going to get mistakes out of your locker, best time to do it is pre-season. But it's not the first defensive error that we've made in a game on tour. Are you concerned with the number of defensive errors that we've made? And just to remind you, we had the Ramsdale save that should have been a save against United. We had the Gabriel kicking complete fresh air, which led to Manchester United's second goal. And then now we've got this Odegaard. And I mean, even in the games against MLS and so forth, we've not looked, even at times last night, we've not looked massively secure at the backs. But are you concerned with the goals that we're conceding off the back of errors?
Yeah, I would say yes. I'm concerned because looking at where we are coming from, which is the performance from last season, if you look very closely, Manchester City did not score too much of a lot of goals compared to how much goals we scored. They scored 94, we scored 88 goals, which is just a difference of 6 goals, even with the fact that they had a 30-plus goal striker at their disposal. So, bro, looking at how much goals we conceded compared to how much Man City conceded, we conceded 10 more goals, which means our defense and our midfield needs to close shop and stop making these mistakes that would cost us losing points from winning positions. Looking at the Manchester United game, the goals we considered in that game were goals we potentially have been able to avoid. And looking at Odegaard losing that 50-50 tackle with a Barcelona player there, I think we need to stop conceding this kind of goals. There are some goals that you let in and you look at the situation and I said, okay, this one I can't, it's a goal that would have happened anyways. So I think we need to, these mistakes need to stop happening often. We threw away points in last season in a lot of leading positions. Games we could have easily won. Games we could have closed up shops on. It's not about the amount of goals we are scoring on the other end. It's the amount of goals we are conceding. And looking at the players we have brought in this summer, I think that gives us a little bit of confidence. Give us confidence going into the start of the season because we feel like, okay, last season we had just a starting 11, but we are beginning to have a group of 15 to 16 players that we could potentially beat our hand in our chest that, okay, if one player is not starting in this 11, another player that comes in will be able to keep up the quality. Look at that game, we were without Declan Rice, but Thomas Partey was in there.
This is it.
So we did not come out of that game and screaming. Maybe if we had Declan Rice at our disposal. So I think this is a different. We are on a different level right now in terms of the quality we have in our squad. But our defenders needs to stop making this kind of mistakes. There are times when we should concede goals that say, okay, this was a well-worked goal, fine. But if we can avoid it, we could potentially avoid it, because mistakes made in midfield, mistakes made in the defense definitely will lead to a goal. So we need, even sometimes if you make a mistake in attack and your midfielders are not able to cover up, it could potentially be you considering a goal. So we need to stop avoiding this kind of situations. If we can win in those 50-50 tackles, put in your foot, or try to be more physical, try to be stronger in those challenges and get the ball, and that could potentially be you scoring a goal on the other end. So these are situations we need to really look out. I think in the training ground going into the start of the season, our defense and our midfield was why I think we lost the league last season. It was not our attack. We scored a lot of goals. And
it's crazy you say that, because like when you actually think about it, like you said, we scored 88 goals. We haven't struggled to score goals this preseason, and yet a lot of Arsenal fans, including myself, are crying out for an alternative centre forward, or somebody to kind of cover, or compete or rotate with Saka. So it's actually crazy when you think, like, really and truly, I think you hit the nail on the head again, in that we didn't lose the league for a lack of goals last season. That wasn't the reason why. We comfortably scored goals against all opposition, whether it was a bottom half team, in the table, mid-table team, or whether it was one of the top six. Our record against the top six was really, really good. So, it is a concern. I think in a way, it comes with a little bit of the territory in terms of the way we play. We play a high line, we play possession-based football, and sometimes where we push up, if we do lose possession, particularly against a team like at the level of Barcelona or Man City, where they do have players that, Man United as well, they can hurt you. One thing about Man United, they're very dangerous on the counter-attack. So if you lose position, in that transition, very, very quickly, 2-3 passes, they can be through on goal. So I think a lot of it is also the level of opposition that we're playing. But for me, it's a concern, definitely, because, if you just look at the last 2 games, we've conceded 3 goals from what I can remember. Both the goals against United were defensive errors. And at least that 1 goal, that we conceded to go behind was a defensive error. So, 3 defensive errors, in 2 games, 3 goals conceded is not great reading. So it's definitely something that concerns me. And I think it's definitely something we need to address. Moving on, obviously, we won't go through the ins and outs of how the game was kind of patterning out, but Saka latched onto a defensive error from Christensen and at the back against Barcelona. Not so much about his goal, but I don't know what your opinion is, but I think Saka's looked sharp this preseason. What's your thoughts?
Well, for me, I think I want to say something about the second goal. Saka, the goal at Saka assisted for Kai Havertz. Yeah. You could see he showed strength there. He showed that it's not going to be a pushover, because definitely with the way he plays, defenders are going to come try to pick a team. There are going to be a lot of tackles, but I look at Saka, the way he handled that defender. I think that was Alonso in that situation. The way he handled Alonso, who seemed to be a veteran in that situation. I think I'm excited for what the season holds for Bukayo Saka, because he's showing strength. He's showing that yes, he will be able to take most of these tackles. He will be able to go into these 50-50 situations with the defenders and come out on top. So that's what we want to see from a player who we know we definitely would be needing to get in the goals, getting the assist for us. So I think Saka looks sharp, is looking physically strong, is looking fit with all of the tackles. He has been on the receiving end from the Man United game, also to the Barcelona game. It's looking like it could take on those tackles. But I also think going into the season, I hope that potentially it would get more security also from the referees and the officials. It's
been an ongoing issue, isn't it? It's been a massive ongoing issue. Like he literally gets zero protection from officials. There are players of lesser ability that play for, with all due respect, lesser clubs that get more protection than Saka. And I don't quite understand. It's fully fledged. Sometimes the officials tend to be, quite kind to fully fledged England internationals, but for some reason he doesn't warrant the protection from the officials. So that is a concern, particularly where he is such an influential player for us. A question around Saka though. I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence with regards to what I'm going to ask you. Do you think he should be our first choice penalty taker?
Well, for me,
okay. So you're on my wave, yeah.
no. But the thing is, so far all the penalties he took last season, I think he scored a good number of them.
I think he scored 8 out of the. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think he scored 8 of his last 10 for Arsenal, I believe.
So it seems to be he has a good scoring rate. If we want to look at the number of penalties he's taken since he has stepped up to that penalties duty. Because for me, I think was it a game against Liverpool or Spurs?
Yeah, Liverpool. I think Liverpool he stepped up in this match.
That was Liverpool, yeah. He stepped up and he took the penalty.
And that was a high pressure penalty as well.
High pressure game, high pressure penalty. So for me, I think so far, it still look like he's got his house in order in terms of being the penalty taker. But it depends on the players who are going to also have on the pitch potentially, because if Jorginho is going to be on the pitch with him, Jorginho is somebody who's also a very good penalty taker.
Yeah, so he's top notch.
It's going to be down to Mikel and down to how the team sets up and who's going to be at the starting 11. But so far, I don't think that duty should be taken away from him yet, until we have somebody who has a better high scoring ratio than Bukayo Saka.
Okay, now I hear you. I think what you said, when you look at the facts, he scored he scored 8 out of the last 10. I believe that is. I think I looked that up earlier. His ratio is good. And he's missed some high profile penalties, which we won't go into, but he has scored some real high pressure penalties as well for Arsenal. And he seems to be the go-to person. So I'm in fully support of him. I'm a little bit skeptical. I've always thought like certain players just seem to be penalty specialists. You look at the likes of Jorginho, who I know has missed. You look at the likes of Tony, who also has missed penalties. He's on a really good streak at the moment, but he has missed penalties, in his career. And when it comes to penalties, it's a lottery, isn't it? It's a 50-50. You pick your spot. Sometimes you might underhit it, you might overhit it. Yeah. Sometimes the keeper just decides to go the right way. There's very little you can do. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Another player that's been somewhat under the spotlight in this US tour, by sections of the Arsenal fans, for sure, is Ramsdale. Give me your thoughts and assessment on Ramsdale's tour so far, and just your thoughts on him. Like, do you think the criticism of him has been fair? Just let me know what your thoughts are with regards to Ramsdale.
Well, for Ramsdale, since we are conceding goals, definitely people will talk about him because it's part of that defensive setup. Yeah. It's a team sport. That's his unit with the defender. So when the defense is leaking in goals, definitely eyebrows will be raised on the goalkeeper also. So in terms of Ramsdale, I think if we provide him enough cover, potentially, definitely that would be we needed to call on him a lesser time. So for me, Ramsdale, I think is a goalkeeper that has been improving. When we signed him, personally, I was questioning that signing.
Me too.
Because we had Leno then, who was a very good shot stopper. Yeah. But the manager wants his goalkeeper to play in a certain way, which Ramsdale seems to be the goalkeeper who has got that skill set, who will be able to start up the play from the back. But with a goalkeeper who's still young, but with one thing that I've known with goalkeepers over time, since I've been a football fan, it's with goalkeeper as they get older.
Yes, he's 24. He's a baby.
So he's still very young in terms of goalkeeper. We've seen goalkeepers hit their prime at that later age. So he's still a goalkeeper that is still developing. Yes, he makes some mistakes, one or two mistakes, but also we should not forget how vital he has also been for the team. He has made a lot of big games for us.
The beginning first half of last season, wow. I think not even best goalkeeper in the league. There's an argument to say he was the best performing player in the Premier League because it was literally like match match winning save after save after save. I mean, it seemed as though there was a bit of a drop off, but I mean, a season is a long season. You got 38 Premier League games alone. It's very hard for a player to maintain that level throughout the entire season if you're playing, 45 to 60 games. But I think the world we live in now, obviously, like we touched upon with media and online and social media apps and stuff like that, they're all platforms for people to voice their opinions in it. And some opinions will have a lot of rationale behind them, and some opinions will be quite reactionary. And at the end of the day, football is an emotional sport. So I think a lot of people tend to kind of maybe voice their opinions at the height of their emotions, maybe, when an incident has just happened. Because I admit there have been times when, Ramsdale's got me off my seat, because my jaws hit the floor because I can't believe he's actually kept the effort out of the goal. And there are times when I've had my head in my hands and I'm like, how has he conceded that? So I think it's the nature of the position, to be honest, as a goalkeeper. It's so easy to go from hero to villain, in a matter of seconds. It just comes with the territory. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on him, because he is a player that sections of the Arsenal fan base have been either very protective of, and I think that's been more of a reaction to some of the criticism he's been receiving online. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Another big talking point, not so much from last night's game, but he got on the score sheet again. So Havertz, I think he's got 2 in 2 now, or 2 in 3 games that he's featured. Now he's been brought in. I've made no secret that he wouldn't have been a player I would have targeted. He wouldn't have been on my short list. And that's just based on, I feel like his career somewhat just stagnated since he's been at Chelsea. And there is context to that, but he was a Chelsea player, so I didn't care about the context. Now he's an Arsenal player. I've got to look a little bit deeper into what his career was like at Chelsea and the reasons behind maybe him not playing or, managing to reach the heights that he did at Leverkusen, because we all know at Leverkusen he was a baller. In terms of obviously the transfer, that's happened. He's a Gooner now. We're all going to support him, etc., etc. Well, some of us are going to support him. Some have already decided to write him off. But by the looks of it, he's come in to play the left centre mid role. He's come in to play the number 8 role. That was obviously Xhaka's job last season. What have you made of his start? Bear in mind it's pre-season. We're only 2 or 3 games into his career, and they're not even competitive games. But what are your thoughts about the transfer, the start he's made, and the fact that he is, for all his criticism, he is actually getting on the score sheet and impacting games?
When we were linked to it, Kai Havertz, I thought it was some kind of April Fool. Initially, when I saw the links, I thought they must be joking, man.
Trust me, bro. I just went like this. Whatever, man. This is nonsense.
Bro, when all the credible sources were confirming it, I was like, okay, what's going on here? But for me, I've not for 1 minute eaten the fact that I'm not convinced about that signing. But there's one thing. The only thing has been my consolation is the fact that I've seen the manager sign some players that I was not convinced about. Yes. But at the end of the day, those signings have proved that, okay, the manager understood what it wanted to do with those signings. Ramsdale was one of the examples personally, because I had a lot of questions about that transfer personally. Kunle, the Nigerian Englishman, there's somebody who we had this conversation then. Yeah, and I was like, no, not for the amount of we paid for Ramsdale, and I was looking at the transfer. I was not convinced about that one, but so far, he has shown that the manager and the guys who are in the recruitment team were not wrong with getting him through the door. So in terms of the player, I'm not convinced about the player with what I've seen as a Chelsea player, but I'm convinced that so far my manager has earned the benefit of doubt for me to, give him the benefit of doubt, even though I agree with what he's trying to do. So I'm hoping and praying that transfer signing would work out because he's an Arsenal player, whether I like him or not. At the moment. So I have to do my first job as a supporter, which is to support the player and support the team. So far, what I've seen, I'm still not convinced what I'm seeing here. But as the season pounds out, it's still not being able to, get acclimatized with the team that much. So I'm still giving the manager benefit of doubt. And my faith is not solely in the player. My faith is in the manager that he knows what he's doing. He believes that players got to work with my system. So that's the whole thing with the Havertz situation for me. But I'm just hoping that the manager will prove all of us wrong, because I doubt personally, I doubt that signing.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And it's like what I said when we signed, because I'm in the same camp as you. There are many players that Arteta has signed, and I've just gone, really, like this just doesn't seem to be the right player or the right profile, the right direction. Oops, sorry, I think somebody's dropped something in the background. That we should be going in. At the same time, I've been wrong about many a player. So I think with the Havertz signing, I said that it's not a signing that usually I get quite excited about a signing. I'm not massively excited about him joining Arsenal, but I am intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see where he will be playing and how well he will do. And I think most rational Arsenal fans are in the same camp as us, in that Arteta has proven that his talent ID, his profile of player that he's brought to the club, on the large part, not every time, but on the large part, it has proven to be successful. He's built a side that has gone from back-to-back 8th to 5th to now challenging for the title. And like you said, credit in the bank. So for me, that's where I'm at. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm looking at the wider context in terms of his Chelsea career. He's not the first high-profile signing to go to Chelsea and flop. There is an endless list in terms of those players that I've mentioned on many streams. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I'm not completely convinced yet. I haven't been absolutely blown away by his performances, but I do like the fact that we could potentially have somebody else in the team that could get somewhere between maybe 8 to 12, 15 goals a season. And I think
also chunking a couple of assists also in there.
Exactly. I think
if I should add something to what you were saying, G, with the fact that I looked at the other managers that were also in for Havertz. Thomas Tuchel were in. So when we were actually linked with him, I had this discussion with a couple of my friends who are football coaches to, have maybe a technical point of view with what they thought Mikel Arteta was trying to do. And what I was also telling these guys is it that these coaches are saying something, Mikel Arteta, Carlo Ancelotti, Tuchel, they are saying something that some of us can't see in terms of the player. So that also, I think, makes me lean a little bit to, that's side of giving Mikel Arteta a benefit of doubt in terms of the Havertz. But personally, I can't see where he's trying to go with that side.
Yeah, and I think, it hit the nail on the head. I think the last two comments have been really good. I mean, thank you, everybody, all of those that you are in the chat. Really appreciate you giving your time today to watch our stream. Please do like the stream if you haven't already. Please do subscribe to the channel. And if you have, please do tell another Gooner to do so, because we are growing and we appreciate all your support. But I mean, Gio Gooner here says, in my opinion, all that Havertz is lacking is confidence. Chelsea wasn't able to build that. I think that's a very valid point. I think he is very much a confidence player. I think a lot of players are confidence players. Tony here saying, GTalks, Akpos, at least you're giving him a chance. Supporters need to get out of their heads. He's come from Chelsea. I think it's a really important point, I just think, like, if some supporters were to just use half the energy they use hating him to just give him a bit of support, he'd probably have a chance to have a half decent career at Arsenal. But we know what, it's not just Arsenal fans. I mean, we see it because we're Gooners, so we see other Arsenal fans, but every fan base, has fans like that are reactionary, that are very critical, very opinionated, but it is what it is. It's a game of opinion, so we just move on. Another player I want to talk about, he had an absolutely brilliant game last night. We've seen him play in the number 8 left centre mid position. We've seen him play on the left, on the right, false number 9. Yesterday, I think the commentators said that he would play on the left in place of Martinelli. But for a lot of the time, I saw him playing down the middle during last night's game. And that is Trossard. Now, Trossard is a player that, now don't get me wrong, when we missed out on Mudryk, I was annoyed. And it wasn't so much about Mudryk because, to be honest, apart from a couple of months before we were going to sign him, I didn't even know who he was. But I was annoyed at the fact that it was a priority signing that we'd missed out on. It's somebody we'd identified, somebody we wanted to sign, and yet for whatever reason, which we won't go into now because it's history, we got trumped in the 11th hour. That's why I was annoyed. But the minute I knew, or I heard, I think it was from Ornstein or Fab, I can't remember which one it was, that we were in advanced talks and the deal was going to get done for Trossard, I was absolutely over the moon. Because I've seen this boy play for Brighton. He's for me, he's one of those players like I wouldn't class as world class. I don't think he'll ever reach that level of being a world class player, but he's a very, very good footballer. He's quick, he's versatile, he's trickery, he's got skills, he's got one shot on him. He just seems to make the right decisions, be in the right place at the right time. And for me, he's got a lot in his locker in terms of like what he can offer a team. So I was over the moon. It was a player that split the fan base. People were talking about his age as if he was 45 or something. And I think when people started to look at it, his numbers were better than I think all three of our forwards, I think the season before. So I couldn't quite get the opposition to it. But he had a blinder last night. The 2 goals he scored were absolutely phenomenal finishes. The one that he hit, in the far corner, the second, the volley that he put away from Tierney's assist, they were just exceptional finishes. Now, Trossard seems to have played somewhat of a bit part since he's come into the side. Do you think he's pushing to be selected for that Nottingham Forest game, the first Premier League game of the season? So do you think he deserves to be in the first team? And do you think he can secure a position in that first team? Because we all know we've got Martinelli, Saka and Jesus. And despite the amount of offensive players we've got, I think there are few gooners. If it came down to crunch time and you're playing a top 6 side, I think there are few gooners that would actually go against picking those 3. So what have you made, obviously, of the 2 goals he scored? But do you think he deserves a starting place over one of those 3?
I want to start firstly by, I think I'm excited that we're having this kind of discussion. This is what we as Arsenal fans deserve.
Yes.
Because I think in the season past, we were so concerned about our starting 11. Mm-hmm. But now, I don't think we'll be worried if Martinelli does not start the first game of the season and Trossard is starting on the left side. Yep. Or let's say if Rice is not starting as the 8, or Thomas Partey is not playing as an 8, Trossard is playing as an 8. I think we have more depth now. We have these players who are knocking on the manager's door that I deserve to be starting in this position. And when you look at the quality they bring to the team, I think we would not be having this. We will not be scared when one player is not on the starting 11. So I think I'm excited about what the season holds and what the next couple of seasons will hold for us as Arsenal fans. But firstly, I want to start with this Trossard team by giving my guys Kanebi and the Nigerian Englishman credits because they called this one on this transfer. I was not excited because I wanted a different player when we got Leandro Trossard, because also I was looking at the fact that at Brighton, I felt it was not consistent. I saw a glimpse of what he could do. In some games, it totally bust the games. But in other games, I saw him also underperforming. So when we signed Trossard, I was not excited about the player coming in. But so far, bro, he has won me over. So I need to big up Kanebi.
I hear it, man.
And also big up Mikel Arteta and that's my Edu for that signing, because personally I was not excited about that one. But this is a player I was won me over with how so well he could interpret different positions, because technically I think this is a very gifted player. And we're talking 100%. About also potentially seeing him playing as an 8. This is a player who could comfortably play across the front 3 for us. If he comes in right, we've seen him play right wing, we've seen him play through the middle, we've seen him playing on the left wing, and now in this preseason we are seeing him playing as a number 8. I think this is a steal for us, considering how so little the transfer fee we paid for Leandro Trossard. Because for you to get a player that can interpret these positions in today's market, you need to be paying, let's say, about 50 million or more.
Big money, man. Big money.
This is a player who I think is a huge asset in our arsenal. A player that we could, when we want to unlock teams, some games where teams will be sitting back, that playing that that low block, not giving us a lot of space. I think Trossard could also come in the midfield position, because he's a player who's very technical, who could, make a pass or two, break down defenses. So for me, I think it's a plus for us to have a player like Leandro Trossard. And I think Gabriel Martinelli needs to be on his foot now. If he's slipping before, because Trossard is gunning for that starting place on the left side of the team. And what we have seen this preseason is also with the fact that I can also play as a number 8. That's what Trossard is also telling the manager. So if I'm a number 8 before, I would be worried that, okay, this guy wants to take the shirt off me. So Gabriel Martinelli and whoever is going to play as an 8. And for me, I think he's also pushing the other guys who are playing across the front 3. So for me, Trossard is a big plus for me. And I think we will see more from Trossard this season. Because now
definitely, definitely. And I love this comment from Tony. What a horrible position we're in with all those choices. It's true. And you know what? I think one thing that needs to be mentioned as well is that I know he was Premier League proven. I know we were getting him from Brighton, but obviously there were some issues with regards to him and the management at the end with Brighton. But he was joining a team in January. He was transitioning from one club to another, from one environment to another. And he literally hit the ground running. I mean, if you look at his assist tally at the back end of last season, it was absolutely phenomenal. But now he's had that, January to like May, with us. And now he's had a full pre-season under his belt as well. So I think we're going to see an even better Trossard this season. And I completely agree with you. I'm absolutely excited. Because now I'm looking at the front 3 and I'm thinking to myself, where can we play 4? Where can we fit all 4 of them in? You know what I mean? Because it is literally like that. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we've wanted for so long. We've wanted to be able to look at a team sheet and think, okay, Partey's not there, Rice is there. Martinelli's not there, Trossard is there. We want to be, in that position. You know what? Saliba's injured. We've got Timber, we've got Kivior. We want to be in a position where we have that depth and we have that quality. So it is a really good place, to be. So the last player that I want to kind of touch upon in terms of my agenda, and then obviously if there's anybody you want to mention, by all means we can discuss, is I feel Vieira. Now, Vieira obviously came into the club out of nowhere. I think they mentioned him and then he was signed within 24 hours. I was really excited. I looked into him quite a bit once I knew we were signing him. It's not quite hit the ground running, for whatever reason. Me personally, I feel like this season is a huge season for Vieira. I really, really do. When I look at the options we have in the position or positions that he plays. And when I look at the aggressiveness we're showing in the transfer market and also the ruthlessness as well in letting players go when they don't quite cut it, the likes of Pepe. I know he was brought in by a different manager, but he's going to go. Players like Holding look as though they're on the way out. You've got Tavares, who Arteta signed, I believe, but quite clearly he hasn't yet, produced, so it looks like he's on his way out. So when I look at the position he plays and the options we've got, when I look at the aggressiveness of us in the transfer window, along with the ruthlessness that Arteta has shown with players when they're not performing, I think this season is huge for him. He scored an absolute screamer last night. I mean, he came on, he did pretty well. I've seen signs in this preseason that he's starting to turn the corner. I feel as though he's making some progress. He seems to have toughened up a little bit, seems to be at the pace a little bit more aggressive in his play. And he does have one sweet strike on him. He does. We've seen it before, even though he's not massively performed, but we know he knows where the goal is. He knows how to strike a ball. So what have you made of the little snippets during this preseason? And what kind of role do you see him playing this season for Arsenal?
Well, for me, I think with the Fabio Vieira signing, I think this is the player we paid a lot of money for, considering the fact that it was a very he came in under 21, very young player. This was not a player that we were very linked with all of the transfer talks and all of that. We said, boom, it was the news came out. He signed for the Arsenal. He came in, and for me, I think like with what we've seen so far, we have a very technically gifted player, but I think we need to, give him a little bit of a time, some more time, because when player moves countries like that, he's coming from Portugal. This is the first time he's practically
big transition, man.
So that's a big transition, like you rightly said. And there could also be potentially a lot of factors why we've not seen the Fabio Vieira, the manager, saw when they got him from FC Porto. So I think it needs some more time. And with the fact that we have other players who we have more options in that position now, I think that takes away a little bit of the pressure that was on his shoulders to perform before now, because now I think we have more stock in the midfield area. So if he comes in now, I think that pressure is not that much there compared to, let's say, when we had just Martin Odegaard. When we take out Odegaard, you bring in Fabio Vieira, okay, because Emil Smith-Rowe was injured for most of last season. But Emil Smith-Rowe, we are hoping that he's going to be fit for most part of the season. Also, I think that would reduce the amount of pressure on the shoulders. I think like he is more accustomed to his environment, to the team, and maybe the country and all right now. So I expect us to see more. And also one of the issues I had with him last season was those injuries that kept on coming. I think he needs to stay fit also, because availability is a very, very vital quality every player needs to get. You need to be available first for you to show what you could do. So for me, he needs to stay fit. I've heard a lot of people say that he can't cope with the physicality and all. For me, I don't totally agree with that when I hear people say it. I've seen players who are not physical.
Yes,
they are very technical players who are forced to be fit in the Premier League. So he just needs to understand to his skill set, how to play best to his strengths. He has got strength, he has got weakness. The physical part of the game could potentially be his weakness. So for me, he needs to know how to utilize his technical ability, which is the strength. And I think even the strongest of players, he would still come out on top if he knows how to utilize his technical ability. Yeah.
I think you make a brilliant point there. I think that the solution is not for him to go and eat hard food and go to the gym. It's not. That's just, obviously they all have fitness regimes, and obviously the professionals at Arsenal, he will be on a fitness regime to get his maximum physical potential. But like you said, we've seen look at players like Gianfranco Zola, how the guy was like 5'2". Do you know what I mean? It's like, and even players like Odegaard, for example. I mean, he's not the biggest physically, but like you said, he's got to home in on his qualities. He's got to home in on his game and how he can utilize it, how he can play his football. You look at players like Silva that played for Man City. They weren't physical beasts, and we've also seen physically strong players that have played in the Prem, but they've just not had the technical ability to actually do well. All they've had is the physical side of their game. So I think you're bang on. I think he's got to find that balance. He's got to find the ways to utilize his game and play his game in our system. And it can work. And I'm still confident it will work. He is a player I tend to be quite patient with a lot of the players now. I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser than I was when I was younger. At the same time, my patience is slightly running thin with him, but I want to see him get the opportunities. This is a new season. I'm not going to hold last season or the season before, whatever, against him. This is a new season, a new campaign. If he gets the opportunities, I'm gonna judge him based on what I see this season, and then we'll see how it goes. But I'm still confident he can have a successful career at Arsenal. My only thing is, he needs to know that, this might be it in terms of, his Arsenal career, because we're not struggling for options in the creativity side of things.
Exactly.
And I think when you look at, like I said, a little bit earlier, when you look at what we're doing in the market, when you look at what we're doing in terms of outgoings, I don't think Arteta is going to wait forever for him to flourish or for him to show his best. So I think this season is massive for Vieira, and I just hope that he's able to really get some confidence and find some form, but also get the opportunities to show that, because regardless of however he's preparing or how his game is developing, if he doesn't get the opportunities to show that in the games, then it's a bit unfair to judge him also. So let's just hope that kind of all pans out. But I mean, that kind of sums up where I was going to go with in terms of the game. It was somewhat of a ding-dong battle. In the end, we won it 5-3. I mean, it's always good to, win on tour, win, during pre-season and beat a team like Barcelona. Albeit it was their first, I think, pre-season game of their campaign or upcoming campaign. So I'm not going to read too much into it. The last thing I want to get your thoughts on, because I know we've spoken in I've seen where you're kind of coming from in terms of like streams you've been on and WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. But in terms of, we're 3 games into our preseason. I think we've got 2 more games to go against Monaco and who's the last one? Monaco and oh God, I've forgotten. I think we've got
the
2.
one I remember is Monaco.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of more fixtures before we meet Man City in the Charity Shield. We've done the vast majority of our business early. We've brought in Rice, we've brought in Havertz, we've brought in Timber. It looks as though the focus now is going to be outgoings. Arteta said himself after last night's game that we've got a 30-man squad. We've got too many players. We need to get rid of some players. He's not said it like that, but he said we're open and we're active. So we know what he means. He likes to speak in parables sometimes. But yeah, so we know there are going to be multiple outgoings between now and the beginning of the season. I'm not too concerned about that because I think we all know who they're going to be. It's going to be a lot of the players that haven't featured as much, the ones that have not been brought on tour. And I mean, yeah, we've spoken about them until the cows come home. But in terms of what else, what position are you at mentally in terms of starting the season? Do you feel like what we've got is enough, or do you want to see more players come in? And if so, what positions and potentially what individuals?
Well, for me, I think we've addressed the issues we had last season. Looking at the players that have come in, because if Tomiyasu stays fit, we have Kibia who has shown what he could potentially do in the centre back situation. Urian Timber can play as a centre back, can play in midfield, can play. We saw him play left back against Barcelona. So I think that's a very, very big steal for us in terms of the qualities he has added to our team so far. For me, Urian Timber, that's a big signing for me. Declan Rice, for me, that's also a big signing because I look at Rice and the way I look at, I think. For me, my strongest midfield 3, if we're going to Liverpool, Man City, the midfield 3 I'll be confident with. It's Declan Rice, Thomas Partey, and Martin Odegaard for me.
100%.
I think like that. With that midfield, that we have got security for me. We've got offensive prowess also. So I think it's also going to depend on the outgoings because we've had the links with Thomas Partey and all, but all of those links have cooled down. And his performance in the game he has played also has also shown us how very important this player is for the team. Because I think if he was 1 foot out of the door before, I think the manager was able to convince Granit Xhaka to stay in the team. Yeah, I don't think this is the right time for us to, that union with Thomas Partey. I think he's very integral to how we play. For me, it gives our defense and our midfield a lot of security. So if Thomas Partey stays, I don't think we will be seeing any CDM coming in. But in the number 8 position, I would have loved us to bring in somebody. But the way it seems, it looks like we spent a lot of money on Kai Havertz. So I doubt if that's going to be possible. But one area where I think like we still need to strengthen is that right forward position where we have Kai Saka, because Saka plays a lot of game for us. And definitely is not going to be able to play all of the games in the season because now we've got Champions League football also. So I think we need to bring in a right winger, potentially maybe a right winger or a forward player who could play on the right wing and also play through the middle. So for me, I think that's one area where we need to, bring in somebody that will will keep Saka on his toes, that, competition and also, added additional depth for the team. So I look at that right wing position. I still feel we are a little bit short in that area. We need to bring one player in that position.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think like so many times, you know, your rationale in terms of what you're saying is spot on. I mean, when I look at the defense, I'd be pretty happy. Well, I'd be happy with the goalkeeper situation going into the league. I'd be happy with the defense. For me, I was always in the camp of I didn't want Partey to go. At the same time, I'm not in control of what the club does. So it's a case of if we are going to let him go, please don't let him go for peanuts. Like we need serious money, because for me, I don't think it's crazy to say, you know, at his best, he is the best DM, like in the Premier League. For me, that's not a crazy statement, because it's an you know, he's arguably the best DM. Like you might say, okay, Rodri, you might say like Casemiro, but it's a conversation. Do you know what I mean? It's a conversation to be had. Them players are not just clear of him. Like, don't disrespect Partey like that. Partey, when he's on form and he's fit, he is an exceptionally gifted footballer. And I think a lot of the time, people talk about his back end of the season, his form dipped. A lot of players' form dipped at the back end of last season. But what about his form? Why we were even topping the table for 34 games of the season. So I think the criticism of him has been a little bit unfair. I think he has been unlucky with injuries. But yeah, I think for me, I've always wanted Partey to stay. It looks as though he's going to stay, which is great news. Because for me, to allow Partey to leave and bring in Lavia, for me, we're weaker. Now, I'm not saying Lavia is not a talented player, because he is. For his age bracket, he's top tier. He is. He's in the bracket of the age bracket of Tchouaméni, Lavia. You know, he's a very, very solid player for his age bracket. But he's not at Partey's level yet. Like, he's not. Like, there's no two ways about it. That doesn't mean that he can't get to that. And it doesn't mean that he can't surpass that, but that's a big if. That's potential, and that's future. There's no factual evidence that he will. He could go to the next club and completely fall off. We've seen it before with young players. So I don't see the logic in letting Partey leave and bringing in a Lavia, unless we get, like I say, an offer that the club see too good to refuse, or if Partey himself wants to leave and go somewhere else, because I'm not in favor of keeping players that don't want to be at the club. But as from what I've seen and what I've read, there's been nothing from him to suggest that he doesn't want to be at Arsenal and that he's unhappy. So the fact that he's still here and he's starting games and he's part of the preseason tour, I'm over the moon. And I hope that no move materializes between now and the beginning of the season. I think we already have some level of the midfield is disjointed. I think we've got two new players coming into that midfield. They're going to take time to bed in. We've already seen Rice miss last night's game due to injury. We've already seen that it's not quite working yet with Havertz. The last thing you want to do is, having let Xhaka go, is to then let Partey go. For me, that's a massive, massive risk. So if we keep the midfield as it is, happy days. I'm happy for us to go into the league with that midfield. I completely agree with you. It's the right wing position. I feel like with Martinelli, Trossard, and even ESR, who I believe is phenomenal on that left wing at times, I think we've got enough that side. I think centrally, we've got Jesus, obviously. We've seen Trossard can play there as well due to his versatility. I think something needs to be done with the whole Eddie and Balogun situation. If it was up to me, I'd keep Ballo. I'd sell Eddie. That's just my personal preference. If a good offer came in for both of them, I'd be tempted to sell both and potentially go out into the market and get another centre forward. But that's a big if. But it is that right side. I wasn't in favour of us extending Reece Nelson's contract. At the same time, he did have some exceptional moments last season. He can't stay fit is one of the reasons why I have an issue with it. Also, I don't see him pushing Saka. I don't see Saka looking over his shoulder thinking, oh, you know what, I got to play well today, because guess what? If I don't, the manager's going to select Reece Nelson. There were times last season when Saka looked absolutely knackered and Reece Nelson was available. and Arteta resisted to put him on. I think that tells us all we need to know. I honestly believe that Reece Nelson has been kept on for business reasons. I think he's a player that has potential. I think he is a player that in this market has value. And I would not be surprised if next season or a season after we sell him and make some decent money of him. You just have to look at the likes of Willock that we sold for, how much. You look at the likes of Anthony Gordon that went from Everton to Newcastle for 40 million. This market, it's stupid to let players like Eddie Nketiah and Nelson to walk out of your club for free, even though they might not be good enough for where we're going. To let assets of that value just walk out on free transfers, it doesn't make, especially when we're trying to, maintain the structure of being, self-sustained or self-sufficient. Well, if that's what we want to do, then we have to be able to get money back when players leave the club. So that's my opinion on that. So I definitely feel like we need a right winger. I'm not too fixated on names. I'm not too fixated on individuals. I just want us to bring in a player or players that can improve that area. I feel like when I look at the squad now, that is the one area, like yourself, that just leaves me a little bit uneasy. We've seen Saka carry this team, not so much last season because it was more of a team effort, but for 3 seasons before that, since he came into the side at 17, we've seen him practically carry this side. And I just don't think we can afford to do that anymore. And the position we're in, like you said, with Champions League and Premier League and FA Cup and Carabao, we need to have a player that can come in, that can stay fit, and that can push him. Not just come in when he needs a rest, but actually, you know what, Saka, you're not playing. I love Saka. He's my star boy. He's my favorite player at Arsenal. But if you're not performing, bro, you got a whole bench.
Someone else needs to come in. And that level of quality the drop off should not be visible.
And you know what that will do? That will unlock another level to Saka's game. Trust me. You bring in a player that Saka is on his toes or looking over his shoulder, that will unleash and unlock another level of Saka right now. We ain't seen the best of Saka, and that's a very exciting but scary proposition for opposition teams and opposition fans, because he's by no means at his top or his prime just yet. But I think in terms of his development and in terms of our development as a squad, we definitely need somebody to come in on that right side to push, rotate, and compete for that position. But yeah, man. Any other thoughts before we go? But bruv, it's been amazing chatting to you, bruv. I could do this all day. But any other thoughts or anything about pre-season, looking ahead to the season, or anything Arsenal related that you want to discuss?
Well, the comment there from Luke, where he said Lavia could suppress Partey.
Oh, okay,
yeah, that comment where Luke says Lavia could suppress Partey this season since he's going to Liverpool in terms of the levels. Well, I think that's a probability the way I look at it, and that's a risk that's too big for us to take, because just like G rightly said, there are very few players right now in that CDM role that are above currently above Thomas Partey. We are talking about now at this present day. How many players in that CDM role that are above Thomas Partey? This is a probability. We don't know what would happen potentially if Lavia moves team. So right now, I would want to be, put my trust in a player that has tried, tested, and trusted. Somebody who I have more security in. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe his ceiling is going to be more than Thomas Partey in a season or two. But we're talking about at this very moment. I think there are just very few players who we could put above Thomas Partey in that CDM role. So for me, Thomas Partey staying is going to be a big plus for us.
100%, man. 100%, man. And you know what? On that note, bro, I think that's a wrap, man. What a show. What a show. I mean, we haven't done a stream together for a while, but I thoroughly enjoyed that, bro. That hour and 5 minutes went quick. But yeah, no, you know what, Akpos? Akpos, it's an absolute pleasure, man. You speak sense, you speak facts, and everything you say, there is explanation, there's rationale, and individuals like yourself are the ones that I enjoy streaming with. So thank you so much for coming on today's show, man. But let the people know where they can find you, bro.
Well, I hope they can find me more often. Hopefully, I'll be able to, jump on the stream more often on the Armoury. But you can always find me on the Aussie Gunners channel. And also you can find me on One Touch TV, and potentially, I hope I'll be able to do more things on my channel, the Football Talk Shop.
Wicked, man. And you know what? Thank you to everybody in the chat. I mean, the comments has been amazing. I mean, literally every single talking point, you've been active, you've been pinging them over. I've been trying to get all of them on. I think I might have missed a few, so apologies for that. But yeah, if you haven't liked the stream, please do so. Here at the Armoury, we're going to be as active as possible over the summer with regards, obviously, transfers, preview shows, review shows, and any kind of breaking news that we can. Obviously, we've all got lives, so we can't always be available when news breaks, because Arsenal tend to break news whenever they feel like it. But yeah, man, just tune in. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. So, we are growing. We're a small channel, but we're trying our best. So all the support is massively, massively appreciated. So yeah, last thing to say is just massive thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Massive thank you to my guest, Akpos. Yeah. And yeah, until next time, come on, you Gunners. Take it easy.